thank you to Architecture, Media, Politics and Society for giving us the opportunity to present on decoding virtual people and digital labour in higher education, technologies, dynamics and implications. So my name is Dr. Melanie Chan and I'm a Senior Lecturer in Media and Communication at Leeds Beckett University. And this presentation is based on a small-scale research project that I worked on in collaboration with colleagues in learning technology and in academic skills tuition. So I'll begin with an introduction to talk about the collaborative aspects of this research. It involved colleagues across different service areas in the university, both academic colleagues and colleagues who are working in professional services. I'll talk a little bit about our research topic and the questions that we focused on for a small-scale pilot project, the methods and materials we used to collect and analyse our data, and some of the summary, if you like, of the findings and the discussion from our research so far. And that will be followed by a summary and a conclusion of where we're hoping to go with this research. So begin with the thinking about the context in which we created this research. We were thinking about how virtual people, which are either computer generated or actual digitized human actors, how they are becoming increasingly used in HE and how that fits into the growth of online courses and hybrid learning really post-COVID-19. We were also thinking about the increasing competition in the HE sector and the increasing operating costs associated with recruiting and retaining staff. And it's in this context that introducing virtual people into the labour force is particularly significant. And when we're researching the literature around digital technologies and higher education, we found that at present there's a lot of discussion about the use of generative AI in HE in relation to professional services, in relation to recruitment, admissions and progression monitoring, and the automation of academic tasks such as assessment. But our research places virtual people within the context of the social division of labour, considering that it's not a particularly new thing, rather it's a continuation of things like the social division of labour that took place during the Industrial Revolution and how this is continuing into kind of the post-industrial context. We consider the interactions between virtual people, staff and students as the site of performativity and emotional labour. And this is actually less understood in the research literature around AI and digital technologies. And this omission of this kind of aspect of emotional labour is particularly significant since virtual people have the potential to fulfil a range of professional and customer-facing roles in HE, which involve emotional performativity. And this made us think about the ways in which virtual people are more than just software programs embedded in chatbots or digital assistant devices. And this is because their uncanny resemblance to human beings includes emotive facial expression, voice intonation, which are crafted for commercial purposes to perform their roles which may displace, augment or replace human labour. And here's a screenshot which gives an idea of the ways in which virtual people are being introduced into the higher education sector. So this is an image of Centea, And Syntea is a virtual person created by IU University so that students can interact with Syntea, and she acts as kind of a virtual tutor to help them. And she is actually embedded in their virtual learning environment. And here's an example of a testimonial from a student at IU University who is studying MBA, who says that the helping hand of Syntea suddenly did not feel like a crutch, but a real support. And from then on, I have made it a point to talk to Syntea when I am in doubt. So this kind of emphasizes the supportive, guiding role of a virtual person in the higher education context. So virtual people themselves can be placed in the context of neoliberalism, things like cognitive capitalism, and the fourth industrial revolution, which concerns AI and robotics. The use of virtual people is positioned by synthetic media companies who produce them, such as Synthesia and Soul Machines, Hour One and Unique, as offering staff and students benefits such as speed, efficiency and convenience, at a time when universities are increasingly structured on business principles. And here's a screenshot of kind of a promotional material produced by Soul Machines, which is it's kind of speaking to employers. It says, easily customize, train and deploy an AI-driven, totally interactive digital person for real-world impact. So this is the idea that virtual people will enter the labour market and the ways in which they are framed as innovative, cost-effective, and so on. So we had 3 key research questions in this pilot project. The first was, how might staff and students perceive virtual people? We were also interested in to what extent could virtual people impact upon human labour in the HE sector in various aspects, not just academic tuition, but also things like professional services. And then thirdly, how effective might they actually be in relation to teaching, learning and professional services contexts? So to explore these research questions, we established focus groups. Our focus groups took place between September 2023 and May 2024. Focus groups were chosen to explore the research questions because they enable critical and creative thinking in terms of generating ideas and evaluating debates. Before recruiting our participants, we obtained ethical approval for our institution to conduct this research. The 4 focus groups that took place had between 8 and 10 participants. 2 focus groups were conducted online, and 2 were actually conducted in person on campus. Focus groups provided a synchronous collective discussion to explore the socio-cultural meanings surrounding virtual people. This approach was a way of focusing on emergent social issues rather than individual psychological attitudes towards virtual people. What we did was we used a range of audio-visual elicitation materials for our focus groups, which consisted of short videos which were produced featuring virtual people. And these were produced by accessing the Synthesia Design Studio to actually create these videos. Our data analysis primarily focused on linguistic responses to the audio-visual elicitation materials. Our focus as qualitative researchers was on the interpretation of the elicitation materials and the multiple meanings they generated. Transcriptions of the focus group were analysed by researchers with a view to uncovering common themes, sentiments and perspectives. And we also acknowledge that this research was around emic relationships between researchers and the participants, because we were all members of the higher education community of practice. In this sense, we were insiders, and the interpretation of virtual people was shaped by institutional practices, social norms, and academic culture. Our key themes, our findings, were arranged around form, function, and interaction, and each of these findings related to our research questions. The first finding, relating to form, related to how participants perceived virtual people. So after engaging with the video elicitation methods, our participants were asked to create a word or phrase that they thought encapsulated their perceptions of virtual people. And here is a few of the things that they said. They said they were uncanny, creepy, spooky, fake, stiff, scary, odd. They had dead eyes, and they were lacking in facial expression. One participant said if it looks like a human, then it should perform like a human. So in this regard, it's the human becomes almost the yardstick for which the virtual person's function becomes evaluated. But as we will see in other examples, it was the other way around, that humans were evaluated in relation to what virtual people could do. The voice didn't match the face. I'd prefer an accent or something more realistic that can be more persuasive than a pretend face, said one participant. So here's the idea that it's kind of a fake person. Again, kind of not quite as good as a person in some ways. One participant said, you know that term, the uncanny valley? I thought I was listening to a real person or watching a real person. Now it's clearly a machine. This challenges me to reevaluate everything that I've heard from this experience. So out of this response, where as researchers, we're actually analysing how this comment relates to things like trust and authenticity, especially in terms of the interactions that occur between staff and students. In terms of function, this was connected to how our participants thought that virtual people would function in the labour force. One participant said, as virtual people are constantly available to work, a human worker wouldn't be allowed to be tired. So this is the case where the human is seen as somehow less efficient than a virtual person. On a similar lines, one person said virtual people don't get pregnant or require time off. And another person said, what if everyone can digitize themselves for social purposes, such as applying for a job? Will this become a marker of success? So this was interesting in thinking about already how digital technologies are used for things like interviewing via Zoom. And I suppose this could be an extension where a candidate actually digitizes themselves and presents themselves in a certain way when they are actually interviewed. In terms of interaction, this is where participants really delved into what might happen if virtual people were performing lectures. So one participant said, I think you could get it to deliver a lecture, but people don't just want it to deliver a lecture. They want to be able to engage and ask questions. I think until it can do that, then it's very difficult for it to deliver anything more than a sort of talk to PowerPoint. You can't use it as a replacement for human interaction. So here the participant, it's noticeable that they use the phrase it, so they clearly recognise a virtual person as a machine rather than personifying it as a kind of she or a he or a they or a them. Another participant spoke about the social aspects of studying at university and how this would be lost with the introduction of virtual people and studying online. They said studying is a chance to socialise, meet friends, talk to them. It's a human need. In contrast, virtual people will reduce social interaction with other humans, and people will feel lonely, and this will create psychological problems. So this brings us back to that aspect of the emotional and performative aspects of student and staff interactions in HE. So in summary, the data from our focus groups indicates 3 broad themes emerging in relation to perceptions of virtual people, human labour and the HE sector. Questions arose about the technological capabilities of virtual people, both what they are capable of now and how they might develop. In each of our focus groups there were concerns about the uncanny valley effect, where virtual humans are seen as just a little bit too close to humans in terms of their appearance. And there was a sense that virtual people will disrupt the transactional types of interactions between staff and students, such as just answering simple questions about when is the assessment due for a piece of work or something like that.